Hi, welcome everybody to our Edcite Schools Back to School Admin webinar series. We are in the third part of this series, the third and final part, where we are going to talk about how to celebrate staff and how to celebrate students. Quick intro to me. I started out as a teacher. I taught ELA in middle school and high school before becoming an instructional coach and a principal. I've been with the Edcite team for a few years, and this is actually one of my favorite things to do is talking about how to use data that you can find very easily in Edcite to celebrate students and staff because there are a lot of great things happening on our campuses, but if we don't plan to celebrate those things, sometimes that can slip through the cracks. You'll see to the right, there's a picture of my husband and my son at my son's end of year awards. And he doesn't look super happy in this picture because he doesn't love pictures, but he was so excited. He has his little AB honor roll medal. He has his certificate of completion for his dual enrollment program, a couple of other things there in the picture. And he's always so excited. One, when he's celebrated at school, and two, when we get to be involved in those celebrations. So I just thought that picture was really fitting for what we'll be talking about today, because I know the impact of celebrating as both an educator and now as a parent. Our objectives for this very concise session are to be able to name and plan for the 3 steps to add academic celebrations into school culture, and also quickly just be able to access our updated admin success guide. The administrator launch guide has been sent out via email, but I also wanted to let everyone know that there is a link as well where you can find this administrator launch guide, which is a one-stop shop for everything you need to know using Edcite at the admin level. So it's been restructured to be a lot more concise with links to specific help guides, and we're hoping that that helps everyone start off the year very strong. So let's talk about planning for joy. Our goal, and I shared everything in gray yesterday, our goal is to ensure teams have the data they need to track progress towards goals and adjust for meaningful growth and mastery. And we talked about that a lot yesterday. We talked about how to track, where to find the data in Edcite in order to be able to track, and really keeping your pulse on the data as a school or district leader. And today we're adding in this really important piece that we know at Edcite we can't forget, and that's and celebrate the wins. If we're only looking at data for the gaps, if we're only looking at the data for the low points, we're going to run out of steam. We're going to run out of happiness and joy at work, and so is everybody else, from the teachers to the students. So I just wanted to really intentionally link this to yesterday's session because we talked a lot about tracking and how to find data in Edcite. And if you're not doing that, then intentional celebrations will be hard. So that's why this is the third session. You might hear me talk about Edcite specifically a little bit less, and that's because if you're tracking using Edcite from our session yesterday, then these parts kind of flow naturally as the next step. So let's talk about the first step. If I want to plan for celebration, I want to make joy a really core part of my school culture, I first need to identify the dates and/or the data sources that I will be using in order to celebrate students and staff. So you always want to think about when will you celebrate. Some of the celebrations I did on my campus were less about when the tests were and more about when I knew we might have low attendance, right? So right before a break, we might plan a bigger celebration to kind of encourage that attendance, make sure kids were there to learn that day, and then have that celebration as well. So that's one example of thinking about when you'll calendar it. Another thing to consider is what exams or student work are we going to use? So we're really grounding our celebration in academics. So after big mock exams, maybe I as a principal would have school-wide celebrations, and maybe after unit exams, teachers would have class-wide celebrations. But the idea here is that at both levels, both the administrator level and the teacher level, we're thinking about when are we going to celebrate, and we have them pre-planned. We get them in the calendar at the beginning of the year because then we know in 3 weeks we have a celebration coming up, we need to be ready. If it's not in the calendar, joy kind of tends to be the first thing to go. So we want to make sure that we know when we're celebrating and what academic goals we're grounding those celebrations in so that they're on the calendar. We know we're going to have the data we need in Edcite to have really specific celebrations. After we've identified those dates, we've put it in the calendar, we know when we're celebrating, it's really important to figure out what we will be celebrating. I love to put growth at the top of this list because sometimes you do have students and maybe even staff that are struggling to meet certain goals. And it's really important that we acknowledge growth. So people who are working hard to grow, students and adults, it's important that we are, calling that out and celebrating growth to build the momentum for more growth. Of course, we also, would want to think about achievement. Um, in Texas, we have approaches, meets, and masters. And so thinking about what percentage of students are at approaches, meets, and masters, and really celebrating people who are on track to meet that end of year goal for that metric was always huge for our campus. And then also thinking about what we'll celebrate whole group, where maybe a whole class meets a goal, and what we'll celebrate individually, where maybe each individual student who showed growth is going to have a celebration. And so it's really important to think about, what specific academic goals will we be celebrating? And then using Edcite's reports to pull that out. Yesterday, we talked about that student achievement score and the approaches meets masters number of students. I know heading into this celebration that all I would need to do is open up that dynamic report and see what students fell in the meets and masters band. And then I would have the students that I want to celebrate for that specific goal. So pulling up those reports and knowing what you're looking for in order to say, this is what we're celebrating. Students who are at meets, students who met their growth goal, students who passed the exam for the first time, however you want to look at it, but being really clear about what it is that you are celebrating. And then we want to plan the celebrations, right? And so I kind of broke this into two portions. I think here it's really important that as district and campus leaders, we're celebrating our staff. So you can get input from students and staff on how they enjoy being celebrated. And I also put some ideas here. Newsletter shout outs and social media spotlights for teachers. I think sometimes that can bring a lot of joy, especially if that's that teacher's personality. They'll reshare the spotlight on their own social media and they'll just, get a lot of validation when they're celebrated for specific academic wins that they've led their students to. A lot of teachers maybe don't like that so much. So you might do something like a handwritten note where they're getting that one-to-one really sincere thank you. And when you use Edcite's reports, you can be very specific about what it is that you're writing the note for. So for example, you can look at standards progress over time and really celebrate a teacher very specifically for showing growth on a specific standard. And that just helps a teacher feel so validated that you're seeing their work because you see the specifics in the report and you're able to name exactly what it is that they're doing well. Another big one was staff meeting celebrations, like who doesn't love a certificate, a coffee? The poppers where you can do the confetti. We were real big on poppers every time someone met a goal. We would also even sometimes run into a classroom and do a popper for some excitement with the kids there. And then last but not least, there's always just silly awards as well. You can make paper plate awards. I'll go into a few more for students, but just kind of having fun with it so that teachers see that you're seeing their work. And this also really, really models for teachers. We expect you to make learning joyful for students, so we're going to do it for you as well. We're celebrating you. We're proud of the work that you did, and we're having fun while we do it. Last but not least, when we're talking about celebrating students, there are a lot of different ways to do this. And these are actually ideas that were in one of our blog posts from last year. But it's just 7 really specific ways to kind of think about how you're celebrating students for meeting their goals. I'll mention a couple of them that I think are extra fun. And I also just want to mention, I've seen teachers do every single one of these, but I've never seen one teacher do them all. So I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed like you have to do all of these things. Pick one, maybe 2 that you find fun that matches your personality and then run with it. The first idea here is accessorize achievement. I've seen teachers do this so well. They'll give kids a fun accessory that's unique to their class, and they get to wear it for the day. Crowns for earning a certain level on an exam, sashes for showing growth, bracelets for completing a certain number of assignments, right? Things that can be found or made without spending a lot of money, but really give kids that, like, oh, I got a master's crown for this unit exam, makes them feel really special. Another one is an Ask Me name tag. I saw this years ago and I've seen multiple teachers kind of recreate it, but the idea is they get a name tag that says, Ask me why Miss So-and-so, Miss Rodriguez, Miss Strickland is proud of me. And then all day long, everyone they see is saying, why is Miss Rodriguez proud of you? And they get to brag about how they did on their unit exam or the growth they showed on a mock exam. So that one's a lot of fun. And again, really cost effective, right? You're not spending a lot of money there, but the joy that a kid gets when they get to share why someone's proud of them is really awesome to see. I'll just name two more real quick. One, sticking to our goals. I've seen teachers almost like football coaches where they get stickers for their helmet when they, have a touchdown or a sack or whatever. They'll have stickers that are specific to their class. And when kids meet certain goals, they earn that sticker for their binder or maybe for a wall in the classroom where they're collecting their stickers. And it just shows over time how many goals a student has met. And so that one can be really fun, especially if you're more of a sporty teacher or a lot of your kids like sports, you can kind of make that connection for them. And then the last one that I'll just name here is a photo op. It can be really fun to have a prop like a frame or a place in the classroom where kids stand, where you take a picture of students for meeting certain goals. And it kind of becomes a tradition in your class after unit exams, maybe even exit tickets, benchmarks, where students get to take that picture with that prop. And then some schools have taken it to the next level where those pictures get posted to social media or emailed to the parent, just to kind of share that celebration. So these are in our blog. There are a few more ideas, but it's just this idea that you get really specific and you pick a tradition and a celebration that you find fun as a teacher, and the kids love it. The kids find it, something to shoot for. I want a master's crown. I want to meet my goal so I can be in the picture that goes on this board, etc. So that's really it, right? Those are the 3 steps. It's not anything you haven't heard of before, but I did just want to highlight, you can identify the dates and the data sources. And then in step 2, you can just go into Edcite's reports and see exactly who the students and staff are that have earned these celebrations that you really want to put on a pedestal and make feel really excited for meeting their goals. And then you can plan those specific celebrations to bring as much joy as possible to your staff and to your students. And feel free to share this with teachers as well, because this can happen on both levels. You can have administrators planning for joy with teachers and students, and then you can have teachers creating their own traditions and their own plans for joy within their classroom. So I know that was very quick. The idea here is just to be quick and concise to get you all some ideas. I'll stay on for questions for anybody that has questions, but you can also email support@edcite.com. And as always, I just want to, finish with a thank you for everything that you're doing for your students, especially beginning of year. It's a lot, but you're setting that foundation for success throughout the year. So thank you all so much for joining, and I'll stay on for questions.